Hey, what's up? How's it going? My name's Mike Squires. This is Couches Podcast, episode number 159. And my guest, Jade Devitt, formerly the drummer of Engine Kid and one of my all-time favorite Seattle bands, Lucky Me. Which is, I mean, if you can find their records, you should do that. Go track them down. They're so good. I loved seeing that band live, and I probably wore out a number. Actually, I need to find it's on a lost hard drive, but I need to find that last unreleased record again. That thing should get released. Someone figure out how to get that, put it out. It's good. Um, Jade fronts his own band, Gale Forces, now. Lives down in Los Angeles for the last, I don't know, 20 years plus, maybe plus 20 plus years. Great drummer, great dude. We caught up while he was in Hawaii, so you'll enjoy the scenery while off the back deck there. I had a great time talking with him. He played on a Dr. Feelgood. If that's a video that's coming out the same week as this podcast episode, so that was super fun. Um, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I had a great time catching up with him. Um, and if you are enjoying the Couches podcast, please support us at Patreon. That's the only place you can download the audio. The audio for Dr. Feelgood is available for download right now. If you are a Patreon supporter already and you haven't gotten a notification, go download it. That's where you get it. Also, so thank you to everyone who does support already. I really appreciate it. Thank you to River City Guitars for your constant support. You guys are my champ. RiverCityGuitars.com. River City Guitars is a very cool, independently owned boutique, vintage, used, and just, generally speaking, kind of fancy stuff. They got a lot of nice stuff there. Go check it out. .com. Follow them on social media at River City Guitars. A lot of times things get posted there on the social and sold before, lickety split. It's gone. So um I hope you go and take a look at their stuff. If you have something to sell, they are always buying. Every day is a buying day at River City Guitars. So give them a call, 509-818-7693, or drop them an email, sales.rivercityguitars@gmail. My guy Bobby does a ton of traveling. If you don't live in Spokane, don't worry. I mean, you'd have to have something, pretty cool for him to go to Florida, but he's not against going to Florida to get the right thing. So thanks to everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's early. My God, I got low energy. So what the fuck am I still babbling about? Don't forget the golden rule. You know the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. If you see yourself treating someone that you would not stand for if they were treating you that way, then shut your fucking mouth. It's not that that's not very cool. Do your best to not be a dick. Oh, look at those blue skies.
What's up, brother?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Dude, it looks very peaceful there.
Yeah. I got like the sort of the deck view with the ocean in the background. I don't know if you can see it. I might have to tip it up a little bit.
That's not the that's not
See
the
that?
worst. That is not the worst.
It's not. It doesn't suck in any way, shape, or form.
Uh,
How you
what?
doing, man?
I'm good, I got no complaints. I'm, you know, I'm the
How's the coffee world?
oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's eh, you know, it's coffee.
I
I
love
drink
coffee.
coffee every day. I love coffee.
You're doing the
But
cold brew? Is that what they do over there?
I love music. Yeah. I do flash chilled. So it's not cold brew. Cold brew is brewed cold using cold or room temperature water. And I brew coffee hot and then flash chill it. So it brews hot directly into a device that drops the temperature from 202 degrees to 37 degrees in about 8 seconds.
That is an extreme chill. I think that the male anatomy would not
No,
endure that very well.
no. They call that a shrinker. They
A
call that
shrinker.
a shrinker.
It's a
Yeah.
total shrinker.
Uh, yeah. So the kids would call this very chill. Yeah, I think. I don't know what the
Way
fuck
chill.
kids say. Who am I?
Super chill.
Yeah, very chill, super chill, bro.
I like the hat, man. You're on brand today.
I barely got back in here on time. I had to like I I I got two dogs, This is terrible radio, but I have two dogs. Everyone knows that. And the little one is terrible at shitting, right? No, he's the worst. He'll like cry and bark at you to take him out, but then he'll like walk around in circles and he's got like a turd hanging halfway out his butt and he won't let go of it or push it or anything. He'll just like he just got some hang-ups about doo doo.
He has no agility, no sort of finish. Is
Yeah,
it the
no,
breed, you think, or what's going on with that? Is he just like, is it personal to him?
he maybe just isn't a finisher. I don't know.
Poor guy. What kind of breed is he? What are your dog's breeds?
He's a little guy. He's like, come here, Mr. Big. He's like, check this out.
Mr. Big, I like that.
Yeah. This is all of Mr. Big.
Oh, he's so cute. He's got the little gray beard there to show
He's
his
a
distinguished
handsome
character.
fellow.
And
This is terrible radio also, but he's handsome and he's about 12, 13 pounds maybe. He's called Biggie, but I call him Mr. Big. Also, I call him Mr. Lickety.
he's a licker.
He's a licker. He just is a compulsive licker. Mr.
I don't like
Lickety.
that.
Yeah, you don't look. Here he goes, Lickety.
Oh
Mr.
yeah, he's
Lickety.
licking the
I'll
mic.
call him Lover Boy, Mr. Lover Boy, because he's just a little lover. And then Rosie. So I don't know what he is. Wiener dog, maybe half. Maybe he's got some Jack Russell. Maybe he's got some dachshund or miniature dachshund and Chihuahua or something. Pretty uptight hunter type dogs.
Yeah,
He
my
definitely
girlfriend
thinks
has
he's
a wiener dog, and the feet are constantly being licked as you walk across the floor.
nice.
Yeah,
That's a weird. I don't like that.
yeah, it's a little odd. It's cute, it's affectionate, but it's like, don't do that.
Not my toes. Don't do it, buddy.
Please don't do that.
Yeah. How long have you been in? We'll just say you're in Hawaii.
I'm on the Big Island. Yeah, I've been here since Friday, and I'm kind of with the we're here with the camp. I'm here with my girlfriend and her kids, and her kids each got to bring one friend each. So we're doing the whole kind of like sabbatical vibe. So getting up at like 6 Hawaii time, which is 8 in LA. Doing the Zoom classes for the kids, and then my girlfriend and I are kind of working in the morning, and then snorkeling, hiking, and having fun, and like right at high noon.
That's great, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What a
Big
time.
Island.
That's the spot.
Yeah, the Big Island. We're on the west side of the Big Island. It's very like residential. It doesn't have like the tourist vibe of like Oahu
Right.
or the other islands. It's kind of more regular folks living their lives. So it's
Is
pretty
the Big
chill.
Island called Hawaii?
It's called Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah. They just call it the Big Island because if you say Hawaii, they'll say which island?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's confusing. It's like, being in Washington State and then Washington D.C. Where are you from? Washington? Yeah, let me explain.
Right. There's a lot of people. You're from the Tri-Cities. Is that right?
Tri-Cities, yes.
There's
Tri-Cities
so
bread.
many of you guys.
It's pretty deep. The river runs deep there. That's my new saying for the Tri-Cities folks. And like, we can't seem to be separated. Like we all stick together, even if you kind of knew a buddy or a friend who like which just sort of went to shows. Like we all kind of stick together. It's kind of crazy.
And the funny thing is like the population in the Tri-Cities is not great. It,
Yeah, I think
it's
when I
called
was
the
growing up, it
Tri-Cities.
was
It's like the size
yeah,
of three fucking Barstows, right?
totally. It's like when I was growing up, I think Kennewick was like 30,000, 28,000, and 34 for Richland. It was like, 100,000. It's probably about 150, 200 now.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a pretty cool music scene growing up for the size.
What Why do you think that there were so many punk rock bands from the Tri-Cities? Because there were a bunch, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty vibrant scene when I first started getting into it. Diddley Squat was like the kind of hometown hero band. That's Nate from the Foo Fighters. That was his band, and of course Eric Ockrey. So they were definitely the hometown heroes. And then there was kind of a bunch of ancillary bands like this band Comatose that were kind of a crossover metal punk band. Um, there was this band called the Happy Dead Ones, which ended up, I think the singer ended up being the singer for Gas Huffer.
Oh wow.
Um, Holy Ghost People, that was another one. Some of those bands were kind of a cross between like kind of the SST bands like Camper Van Beethoven, or they were kind of had that sort of college radio punk rock mix.
Yeah.
Um, but it was pretty vibrant. I mean, I remember being a freshman in high school and literally walking down the halls of our high school and seeing a flyer. It was a punk show in Walla Walla for like Insolence and like Manifest Destiny and Diddley Squat. And I remember, and then somebody told me that like, oh, Diddley Squat are from here. And like the whole concept that like somebody could be in a band and somebody that I knew was in a band, it literally took me a week to kind of comprehend, sort of small town and all that. But it was a very vibrant, unified music scene. Like, and you sort of had the culture of conservative America mixed with
Right.
this sort of group of misfits of about maybe 50 to 100 people that included, skateboarders, the gothic girls, the subculture that was more into kind of Bauhaus and like New Order. And we all just kind of were glued to each other.
Well, there must
So
have only been 80 of you between the three cities.
it
Like,
was probably 50 to 100 people, and some
right.
of those people were coming from Walla Walla or Spokane. Um, but it was fantastic. I mean, Walla Walla was kind of a hub for a while. I think Black Flag played there.
Really?
Descendants came around, and it was kind of like a pretty steady stream of bands that would play.
In Walla Walla. Oh, because there's a
Walla
college
Walla,
there.
it was a college town, and they had Walla Walla Community Center. A lot of SST bands like DC3, the U-Men played there from Seattle. Um, Youth of Today, kind of straight edge hardcore bands would go through there. So
Right.
whatever was there, everybody would just kind of glom onto it.
I was gonna ask you, like, did live bands ever come to the Tri-Cities? Because I can't imagine that they would, but it makes sense that they would go to Walla Walla.
Yeah, we got a pretty good stream. We had definitely more kind of independent, unknown bands. And then sort of like once the sort of, you know, the tipping point happened with grunge and all that, then it was sort of like then you had all the Seattle bands that played there all the time, Tree People, Screaming Trees, Spill to Spill. Um,
They
but
came
before
to
that,
Walla Walla?
no, to the Tri Cities.
Really?
So yeah, there was a couple guys that started promoting, and the scene just got pretty vibrant. There was also a place called the Hoedown Center, which is legendary in the Tri Cities, and
Right.
that was definitely a hub, like sort of like 1990, like 87 to like 95. Um, Lots of Seattle bands like the Gits, Sunny Day Real Estate, Tree People, um, more obscure punk rock bands. Um, but yeah, it was very tight knit. Small shows, maybe 30 to 100 people, until like again the tipping point with Nirvana and all that. Then you sort of had like all the jocks were suddenly into rock music.
Right. Isn't that great?
It was really weird to me because it's like coming from this sort of purist punk and like sort of being outcast and sort of like being always kind of under threat, from that element. And then to have them sort of like next to you at a concert, it was just like, wait, why are you here? Like you didn't get it when it was gettable,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Ironically, you and I met playing basketball, though.
Is that
I
what it
think
was?
that's how we met. Yeah.
And
Eric
the first my
Ockery invited me to play basketball, and it was like a crew of guys that were playing. And I maybe had joined Nevada Bachelors, but I hadn't got, I had barely got to do anything yet. And then there was like you, Eric, Gabe was
oh
playing.
Gabe from Juno.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was cool. We also Rob from Lucky Me, we were kind of in a league together all, and Eric and I, we were on the same team for a while. We got really into like adult league basketball and pickup games, and we're playing like 3 to 4 nights a week. And I was on the same team with, do you know Tim DeJulio, the guitar player from
Yeah, of
Seattle?
course.
Yeah, so we were on the team together, and like I didn't even know he played guitar for like a year after we'd been playing basketball together. It was just like Tim was the guy that like had the great jump shot, so we would just kind of dish it to him, and like then we played a show together. I'm like, hey, wait, what?
I would love to see his jump shot and watch his
His
like
pro.
hair move.
He had the great headband, and he had like the kind
Oh,
of
that's hot.
uh, Pete Maravich kind of vibe. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Uh so that's how we met. But I was secretly already like the biggest Lucky Me fan in the world. Like to this day, I still tell people the best thing that ever came from Seattle that never got to do, never got to be fully realized.
That was a really fun band. It was a band that I think the sum of all of its parts is what made it great. Obviously, Nylene French was super talented and charismatic, but it was also kind of like the first band that was like we were all very comfortable with each other, and it was kind of more like a family vibe.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that was a really golden time. I think the first time I remember you was like uh, you were sitting on the couch at the house you lived with Darius. And like, I don't think I made the connection that you were a musician for at least several years after I had met you. I just thought you were the guy that was around, like,
Right.
and then like sort of then like, oh, he's this ripping guitar player.
I wanted to be in Lucky Me so bad.
You probably could have been, because there was a time where we were like
Well, we were
short a
talking about
guitar.
I went out and bought a fucking whammy pedal.
Those are pretty sick back then. Yeah, we were at some point. I think there was several occasions where we're sort of like looking for a guitar player, and we played I think a handful of shows as a trio, with French just kind of playing guitar. And
Oh, is that right?
um, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this. Did you were was it always the same lineup? Did you play on the first record?
No, I did not. Mark Brueggemann, who was also in Voodoo Gearshift and who is
Right.
an insane drummer, he played on Glue, which was the first Lucky Me record. And then I sort of joined after that record had come out.
Yeah.
And I had kind of befriended Rob, and Rob had been in My Name, which is a great band from Tacoma. And my former band, Engine Kid, we had played a show together, and we had kind of become friends. And then he sort of befriended me and wanted to jam under the guise. In my head, I thought, okay, we're going to start this new project. And then
He had
I'm
a
like, well,
great
hey,
stage vibe.
total state, total shredder, total physicality, total energy and force. Yeah, and really like my total soul brother for that whole time that I was in the band. We were best friends the whole time we were in that band together, which was like basically 96 to 2000. Um, yeah, but he was recruiting me, but I didn't know it. He was sort of like, hey, let's jam. So I was like, oh, we're going to start this new band. And I'm like, hey, well, let's jam with a guitar player. And he's like, all right, cool. So he brings over Gary Westlake, and I'm like, and we're jamming. I'm like, wait a sec, what is going on here? And then, sure enough, a couple weeks later, I was in the band. But yeah, Mark was the original drummer. I don't remember quite the circumstances of why he left the band, but I joined, and then the sound kind of shifted a little bit,
Right.
and
Yeah,
and then
it was a bit more of a had more of straight like garagey punk kind of vibes on that first record, and then it got like groovy and gothy and so fucking rad. I mean, I loved both the records and the EP, but I'm not here to give you a hand job. Um, I'm here to talk about music.
good. I appreciate that. I'm good with that. Yeah, I mean, the first record was really, I think, Nylene's baby. Like uh, French Walker, right? She
Yeah.
changed her name to French Walker, but sometimes it's hard not to say Nylene. And she had these songs, and I think she got together with Rob, and Rob had kind of crafted some of the arrangements. So all the songs on the first record were kind of like, I think, Nylene's songs that she had for some of them for a long period of time, and maybe some she had written right before the record was recorded. And then when I joined the band, and then when John Auer joined the band on guitar, the sound kind of shifted, and it definitely became like a sum of all the parts. And with Nylene obviously still kind of the focal point, but the arrangements and some of the structure, and just kind of the direction of the band sort of became a more of a group effort, and heavier. I think a little bit heavier too.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Well, like heavier but strangely like rhythmically more sparse, less
For
hectic. Like
sure.
music was less hectic and more, for lack of a better term, sophisticated.
Yeah, for sure. It got more kind of song based, and there was definitely like three or four songs on the record that I played on that were like the drum parts were ripped right from drum machine parts, or augmented slightly, but definitely like certain songs I was playing for the song, and it was very much with this groove, and Rob and I as the rhythm section would be very locked in and kind of hypnotic. So yeah, it definitely got more kind of simplified and like pulsing, and then sort of French doing her thing on top, and then John also doing like harmonies with her, which was really incredible.
He's great.
He's next level. Yeah. Great producer too. He produced the demo.
Yeah.
He kind of joined the band as we were recording that demo, and he played guitar on all of it. And that was at Robert Lang Studios up north. And that was a great sounding demo. That's actually my favorite thing that we did. But after that, John kind of officially joined the band, and that was kind of the sound. The sound had kind of shifted. Um, Yeah, that was great. That demo actually almost became the album, and we were going to be on Loose Groove, which is Stone Gossard's label, um, which I was excited about at that time because they had just come out with the first Queens of the Stone Age record, and I was kind of buddies with Regan at that time too, and but we ended up kind of holding out and holding out for a major label. But that demo was the kind of thing that kind of shifted everything.
Let's back way, way up because we skipped a lot of shit because I was so excited to talk about Lucky Me. But you can bet that we'll talk about Lucky Me again. Um, when did you start playing drums?
I started playing drums about the time that my mom married my stepdad. I was probably about 14 or 15, and she married this guy, Mike, who became my stepdad, and he was a drummer. And right when we moved in with him, he had this beautiful, amazing Ludwig kit that was it had two kick drums. It had the whole like 80s, like like four rack toms and two floor toms, and the china and the six cymbals and the really good Zildjian hi hats. But it was not his kit. It was a buddy of his who was a truck driver who was storing the drums at our house because he didn't want to get them repossessed because he was like late on the payments or whatever. I'm sure he brought it from Isaac's parents at Music Machine, you
Right.
know, the one store in the Tri-Cities. But that quickly after we moved in, those drums disappeared. So I kind of made noise on those for about a month or two. But I was almost too intimidated to actually play them because they were so loud and pristine. It was like there
There
was
were
so
so
much
many of
volume
them.
and too many of them. There was so much volume coming off of that drum set that whenever I would play it, I think my parents were just like, "Nah," you know. Um, but when that kit got taken away, my stepdad had this old shitty kit that was like wrapped in like blue velvet. It had no heads on the bottom. It was super dead, super dry. It's the kit he had when he was like young, like in high school, and he was a huge Ginger Baker fan and a great drummer in his own right. Mike, my stepdad, and so that was just kind of sitting there. It had a couple cracked cymbals. I don't even think it had hi hats, and that's where I just started tapping around
And
on that thing.
he showed you the basics, like this is the sound that you hear on the record when you know, he kind of showed you like, well, you don't
Not at all.
you
Nothing.
cross your hand. No, he didn't show you anything. He was just like, here's some
No.
sticks.
He would play every once in a while, and he would just kind of get into it. He was really into like buzz rolls and kind of like he had a very like kind of John Densmore from the Doors, Ginger Baker kind of style. Um, but we weren't that close. He was great. He was a fantastic stepdad, but we weren't that tight. He was, had a day job and all of that. So I kind of just did it on my own. And I remember the first time I was sitting down and playing drums, that band The Accused
Yes, I do.
from the Northwest. So I was really into The Accused at that time. And I would just play the vocal melodies on the drums, like whatever the vocal thing was doing. I was like, la da da son of pa, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it actually took me a few months to realize that, like, oh, this is a rhythm instrument. Like I need to actually like lay down a solid beat, which was like the sort of super fast punk rock chicken beat, like kind of 1 2 1 2, super fast.
That's the first
um
thing that you learned rhythmically?
the first thing I learned was just playing like really fast, just a super fast punk rock beat. And I joined a band within like 5 to 6 months after that. Um, just barely being able to play.
That's like
And that
that'll boot camp you though.
it totally boot camped me. And I don't know, I just kind of picked it up quick, but I didn't really take any lessons until like I was in my sort of early 20s. I took maybe like about a dozen drum lessons from this guy in the Tri-Cities who his name was Walt Hampton, and he was an elementary school music teacher for one of the elementary schools, but he had his master's in percussion performance,
Oh wow.
and we totally bonded on like Stuart Copeland and Bill Bruford, and he kind of like took my sort of punk rock drumming, and we got really into dynamics and playing very soft, 1 inch, 2 inch off the drum up to like full volume, and that kind of blew everything open for me.
So you're into not just punk. I mean, a lot of people will say like the Police were punk and that first record was arguably punk, but not really, right?
Not really. I mean, I think I mean
There's
I
bands like the Police and the Jam and
yeah.
these
The
bands have
Police
that
are
different
my
energy.
favorite band of all time.
They are.
Like, yeah, I love them from when I was a little kid. I have these weird connections and sort of bonding moments to that band independently with my mom and my father, which is kind of strange. Um, but it's like I still listen constantly to the Police, and I was listening to Synchronicity One, which is on that Synchronicity album, and it's like that tempo is breakneck. Like it's as fast or faster than any punk song. So it's like they weren't punk rock, but sometimes they had that tempo.
They had that attitude.
They had the attitude, the sort of the instigation of that.
Um, so Engine Kid's not from the Tri Cities, right?
No, Engine Kid was a Seattle band. Um,
Not a South End band.
a what?
Not a South End band
What do you mean South End?
like Tacoma.
No, Greg was from Shoreline,
Oh,
which is a little bit north of Seattle, and then Brian, the bass player, was from Spokane.
huh.
But they had formed in Seattle, and I had known Greg since I was about 15. He had a band when he was really young called False Liberty, which was kind of like a thrash band, super cool band. And
Great name.
yeah, they were really cool. And I loved Greg's voice in that band. So I was always like, and I met him through Diddley Squat because False Liberty and Diddley Squat played a lot of shows together. So I met Greg through Nate Mendel, and we just kind of stayed in touch. We were kind of friends. We were kind of pen pals back when like tape trading and like sort of underground music sharing was more of a thing. And yeah, so that was a Seattle band. I joined that band in September of '93. um, I was in the Tri-Cities. I was looking for any reason to get out of the Tri-Cities because at that point I think I had just turned 21, or maybe I was still 20. And I was just like, I'd gotten to that point where like there was nothing else I could do there. I'd already moved to Olympia after I graduated, and it was kind of part of the K scene and the whole kind of riot girl scene and all the stuff that was going on in Olympia. But when I moved back to Tri Cities, I was sort of
Well, you
in
did
some
live in
local
Olympia.
bands. I lived in Olympia in '89. Yeah, I was there with I don't know if you heard of that band Fits of Depression.
Sure.
Yeah, so the drummer of Fits of Depression, Craig Becker, he and I grew up together in the Tri Cities. We were like, we knew each other in middle school. We were super kind of best friends, like sophomore year in high school. And then he moved to Olympia with his parents before junior year. And then I think about a year after that or so, he formed Fits of Depression with Mike Dees. And literally 4 days after I graduated high school, I moved to Olympia. Just with the invitation that like, hey, we're getting this house, which was a total punk rock house.
Right.
Five dudes in a one-bedroom apartment. Um, but that was a great year. That was like major exposure to music, and Mike from Fits of Depression, he turned me on to like everything under the sun, and that was a really cool experience. And Mike was kind of tight with a lot of people that ended up being like luminaries, like Kurt Cobain and Kathleen Hanna. So I'd kind of met all those people while I was there, and kind of got a musical education from those guys,
Right.
and just kind of tailed them. Like I would go to all their practices, I would take photos of them, and go to all their shows. And
You didn't
there
play in
was a
a band during that time, though.
I did not. It's weird. I look back on that and I'm like, it was such a wasted opportunity because there was so many people I could have played with. But I think that
Right.
I was 17. I had just graduated. We were all working at Bud Bay Cafe, washing dishes, making 385 an hour. So I think I was kind of in survival mode.
Right.
And I think at that point I'd only been in one band. Um, and I just wasn't. I didn't feel like I was good enough to join a band. Although like some of the bands I would see, I'm like, oh, I'm better than all of these drummers.
Right.
But for some reason, it just didn't line up. Um, and then I ended up moving back to Tri Cities less than a year later, and kind of forming some bands in the Tri Cities that were, kind of let me sort of develop,
Right.
in this sort of like, you know, controlled environment.
You could stretch out a bit. Also, I mean, at that point, that's when you were taking these lessons with Walt.
Yeah. That was yeah, that was probably age 20.
You guys,
I
that teacher friend of yours, he's got a name that sounds like he would be a kick-ass percussionist.
Walt Hampton. I know. He was such a cool guy. Like I was like, wow, how did I find the coolest guy? And we would just get into the weeds about, kind of splitting hairs on Bill Bruford and Stuart Copeland. And, he kind of taught me things like just how to tune drums and like, how to put the right amount of baffle in your kick. And the major thing with him was dynamics. He was very musical. And I started putting the dynamic twist into my drumming almost immediately. Sometimes almost like or orchestral elements, where you get really quiet and then it gets really to a roar, very controlled, which I ended up using a lot in Engine Kid because that band was very much about quiet, loud, and using dynamics. Being in a whisper, to like shaking the walls,
Right.
and being able to do it on the fly. So that guy Walt Hampton very much helped me with all of that.
So you would go back to the Tri Cities and you sort of like get your shit together and get your confidence together, basically, right?
Basically, yeah. I think the Olympia experience was like I was doing a lot of partying, and
You're 18.
I was 18. I was taking acid and bombing hills, from Lacey to Olympia and timing the red light and like sort of peaking when the light turned green. There was a lot of moments like that. And I think that like I just didn't have the constitution to kind of like keep up with some of those guys that I was hanging out around with.
Let me ask you this.
Um,
Did you have dreadlocks in 89?
I did not have dreadlocks, but there was a time when I wanted to try to get them, and I think my girlfriend at the time had dreadlocks
Yeah.
because she had lived in Eugene, Oregon for a while.
Yeah,
Um,
you're born with them there.
yeah, totally. No, I had definitely had a couple friends that had dreadlocks that were like skateboarding buddies, and that was very much a thing in
Right.
'89 in Olympia.
Yeah. So you were an outsider then.
I think I had like bleach blonde hair,
That
from like
worked.
graduation day. I was kind of the sort of bleach blonde kind of thing. And kind of
Right.
I was like totally into like Neurosis and like kind of hard punk stuff, Melvins,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So when you got back to Seattle, Engine Kid is happening for you.
Say that again, you kind of cut out.
Oh, when you get then you leave Tri Cities in '93, you come to Seattle
Yep.
and you jump right into Engine Kid.
Yeah, that was a kind of a whirlwind because they were already kind of in motion. They had just recorded their first album with Steve Albini in Chicago, and it came out on CZ Records. I think the week that I moved to Seattle, I had talked to Greg in the summer, and and he had kind of offered the gig, but like you know, it was sort of assumed that there'd be some kind of tryout, but we had such a long established acquaintance, and we had so many mutual friends, and we had shared bills, you know, on different shows. So I think there was an unknown quantity between the both of us. So when he asked me to join the band, I think I literally moved to Seattle within 5 or 6 days, and then
You were
we
very ready.
I was ready. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was very ready. I was practicing a lot. I was
You
in
were
a
already
band in the
packed.
Tri Cities. Yeah, I was pretty much I was in a band in the Tri Cities that was kind of breaking apart, and I could never. There wasn't that many musicians at that time in the Tri Cities that I wanted to play with, so I couldn't really hold enough people together that I wanted to play with. It's like there's no more left that I want to play with. So joining Engine Kid was great because I just kind of hit the ground running with those guys, and I think we went on tour like 2 weeks later in Canada, and like we recorded within like 3 or 4 weeks, like a bunch of new material. So it was fantastic, because everything was moving. They were in the pipeline of CZ Records, and it was everything I wanted to do. And the only thing I wanted to do at that time was to sort of be in a band that would have a record in stores and that kind of thing.
Was that the longest tour you had been on? Because I imagine your tours up until then had probably been to Spokane and back.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, that first leg was pretty short. We just went up to Canada, and then in early '94 we did the first like sort of US tour. So, yeah, I had never toured before other than like shows to Boise or Seattle or Bellingham or Spokane or Walla Walla,
Right.
kind of like all points from the Tri-Cities.
Weekender
Um,
shots.
what'd you say?
Weekender shots.
Weekender shots, yeah.
Right.
Um, that could be a band name.
Uh, Sounds like a wedding band.
Weekender shots. Yeah. Yeah. Bunch of shot glasses. But yeah, the engine kit was great. It was like we were kind of, it happened really fast, and we were kind of on our way. And the sound of Engine Kid sort of changed when I joined the band. The first drummer, Chris Vanderbrook, he was very good at the delicate stuff. But I think once I joined the band, the sound, we definitely explored the louder ranges of what we could do. Um,
You're good at hitting hard.
yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's weird because I feel like I never hit that hard until I started playing with Greg and Brian and Engine Kid. I think there was something about having to keep up with that volume that
Right.
totally transformed me into a different kind of drummer. I'd never even thought to play that hard. Like if you played that hard, it would make no sense, like volume wise with the rest of you'd be playing over the band. But with those guys, there was so much volume that I kind of had to, like, raise my shoulders higher and become kind of like a bear to kind of keep up with that volume. But it also kind of lent itself to like catharsis. There's something cathartic about playing that hard and that loud in rhythm, super airtight arrangements. It was yeah, it was kind of a crazy thing that we started to create with the volume and the dynamics.
He's Greg has done exclusively like metal projects since then, yeah?
More or less like stuff that's like experimental, definitely super heavy, some downtune stuff, um, definitely like mid to slow tempos.
Burning Witch?
Burning Witch, yeah, Burning Witch was a band that he started in Seattle, and then he was in a band called Thor's Hammer right after Engine Kid, which I kind of played drums in it for a minute,
Oh, really?
but I just couldn't. I can't play at those tempos. Like it's
Right.
I just couldn't do it. Like I was like, oh my god, this would be so amazing if you were a guitar player. But for your a drummer, it's like it takes this whole other level of discipline and feel. Like the drummer for Earth, like she's really good at that. Like they play at these sort
Incredible
of
restraint.
so like, yeah, restraint, but like still being able to have feel and to like not lose the pulse. Like it's such a delicate dance.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts. How much time passed between, was there any crossover with Engine Kid and the Lucky Me stuff, or was it sort of like a transit express?
There was a little bit of time off. I think Engine Kid's last show was like the end of the summer in '95. And it took us a long time to actually officially break up. I mean, the funny thing is, I was in Hawaii. That was the last time I was in Hawaii. And the bass player and I went to Hawaii because we had some opportunity to be there for a couple weeks after that last Engine Kid tour. And then we got back to Seattle, and the three of us weren't really like talking that much about the band. And I think at that point, it's sort of a combination of like, all the nerves and band stuff that happens between people and the interpersonal
Huh.
sort of
Just being in
edginess.
a band, constantly
Yeah.
in a room, constantly on a stage. It's hard.
Yeah, that mixed with Greg wanted to kind of push more into the heavier, kind of slower tempoed world. Um, we just kind of parted ways, and then I think that I ended up joining Lucky Me in January of '96. So it was only like about 3 or 4 month period where I was not sort of in a full fledged band.
Did you play gigs or play with people during that period at all? Because you knew a lot of folks. You had a lot of friends.
Yeah, no, I had some roommates that were both musicians that were from the Tri Cities, and we would jam sometimes. And I would kind of, I think in that period I had started to kind of write the first songs I ever wrote, like on guitar, and we had kind of, my roommate was a bass player and the other guy was a guitar player. So I think we put together one of my songs or a couple of them and recorded a few of those. My roommate at that time, Brian Holston, he had a studio in the house. He had a 2-inch tape machine
Oh wow.
in the house. and he recorded the first Loudermilk record with Isaac. That's how I really kind of got to know those guys, because they recorded in our house like for a very long time, and we're kind of
What?
living with us. Yeah.
That first
So that's,
self-released thing that they did.
yeah, Man with Gun Kills Three, I think is the name of that album. And I was living in that house for a very long time, probably about 5 or 6 years. I lived in this house in North Seattle with Brian Holston, and he recorded that first Loudermilk record. So,
Oh,
so during that time, I was just kind of like, just kind of like, I was looking for something else. I was looking for like the next thing to do. And then Robbie Williamson from Lucky Me, we had already kind of struck up a friendship because of Engine Kid and my name playing shows. And then I just kind of fit right into that thing, and went with that.
ah, to be young and to be able to go with the flow, right?
Yeah. It's so crazy now, because like, you think back when you were younger, and like I had such a singular focus. It was only music. My identity was music. My identity was a drummer in a band, and like it was all for one, one for all, with that kind of mindset, which is totally, different than where I'm at today. Now you have this balance of everything. But
Right.
there's something magical and great about that mindset, and that singularity that was, you could put everything into one thing.
Lucky Me didn't have zero opportunities. You guys did get a major label deal, made a record in Did you guys record in Vancouver?
Yeah, we went to Vancouver. We recorded it with Dave Rave Ogilvy. He was in Skinny Puppy,
Right.
and he had also done some stuff with Bowie and Nine Inch Nails. Those were kind of his claims to fame, and he had done a lot of records. And so we went with him and recorded an album at Mushroom Studios, which is famous because I think Heart did a lot of tracking for their famous records, and Tom Petty did some stuff there as well. So we tracked there. It was fantastic. I had 24 tracks, I had 24 mics on my drums, which is way, way, way too many.
Yeah.
I had Greg Keplinger like drum teching the whole week that I was doing drums. So it was a fantastic experience. Like we'd get up every morning, walk over the bridge, and then like just track drums for 8 hours. And
Were
then
you
we
rocking a
spent about
Were you rocking a
with
Keplinger snare then?
Oh yeah, the Keplinger snare was there. I think I have a photo somewhere. I had like 5 or 6 snares and 2 drum kits and 25 cymbals. It was the whole kind of deal. We had like a forest of mics in this gigantic tracking room at Mushroom. Ironically, my favorite tracks on that album were the ones that were recorded in the small room
Right.
with less mics. But that was a great experience. We tracked for like a month at Mushroom, and then we mixed for a month at Brian Adams's warehouse studio. It's just a great experience. A lot of money spent on the album by the record label, but the label kind of dissolved before the album came out. So we kind of got flushed out, the baby with the bathwater,
Right.
unfortunately. But it was a great experience, to record that album.
Am I imagining this, or did you guys tour with Sisters of Mercy?
We played a handful of shows with them. We played the Hollywood Palladium, and we played, I think it was called the Maritime in San Francisco, and maybe a couple others. Um, those are really great shows. Those are definitely one of the bigger venues that we played.
Right.
Um, yeah, that was a magical time, because that's when the label was still strong and we were kind of on this trajectory. Um, but those are really great shows.
It seems like the crowd that band should have been in front of is also like that's
Yeah, I think the label didn't quite know what to do with this, because we weren't really, the music was sort of that. I mean, I always kind of described our music. It was sort of like Soundgarden meets the Cocteau Twins or something like that. It was kind of hard to like pigeonhole and kind of fit with. But I think the label was kind of going off of that and kind of pushing us into more of the kind of gothic territory, which we were totally fine with that. We were down with playing with Sisters of Mercy and that kind of audience. It seemed to fit, and they seemed to react to us.
But you guys would, I mean, you would have been probably warmly greeted by in front of a Jane's Addiction crowd as well, or
Yeah,
uh,
totally. Yeah, I think we definitely had that like alternative rock kind of stamp. We could have um, chameleoned with a lot of different sort of bands and fit the bill.
or even Garbage, for that matter.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, French was such she's such a great singer and such a unique sort of vocal delivery and kind of persona. Um, charisma, just she had a lot going on at that time.
after after the band, you guys did. I swear, did you guys do a reunion? One of those Mo shows?
Yeah, yeah, I think I saw you there.
For sure, I wouldn't have missed that.
Yeah, we did a
I think
it was
someone got
2000.
stabbed that night.
I think I heard something like that. I think it was outside though. I
Yeah,
think it was
yeah,
because
yeah.
that the whole uh convergence of all that energy in that it was like I think there was some kind of festival going on, or it was. I remember, kind of because I hadn't been back to Seattle for years, like other than like the random weekend visit, and I was just like, there was so much energy and animosity and like
Oh,
just different kind of groups of people like converging on Capitol Hill that it was like
downtown Capitol Hill got really ugly, man. It got
it was like
super
violent.
ugly. Yeah, no, it was, and it was not uncommon. Although a stabbing was a bit extreme. Like people, there was a stabbing, and then there was also a gnarly fist fight right in the street. It spilled out into the street. It was
Yeah, I
just
remember
that was
that
a
one.
crazy night.
I think I remember standing on the street with you and like while it was like sort of in the aftermath.
Totally. No, yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was hand jobbing you about Lucky Me right then too.
Fuck, that was crazy. That was such a good show though. Like we played with Goodness and Carrie and French are like super tight and we played so many shows with them. So to kind of be a part of that and to get to play right before them, it was like sort of like, it was like we were going back in time. It felt
Right.
very comfortable and familiar, but it was just kind of a treat to like just to play to that packed house and to for us to kind of get to sort of put a bow on that a little bit, and like and we had Gary on guitar and John. So it was great to have like all the members, and for it to be kind of like this unity thing where nobody was left out. It was we were like laughing our asses off the whole week. It was such a magical time like rehearsing for that show. And I had at that time I had not been in the band for like 10 years and I hadn't played drums for 10 years. I was kind of like focused on my business and relationships and guitar. I was starting to play guitar and write songs with Gale Forces, like the very
Right.
beginning stages of like writing my own songs. So the Lucky Me reunion in 2014 was like it's literally the first time I'd played drums with other people in like 10 years. But it was
Not
crazy
even
because it
on
was
your
just
own
like,
demos.
what's that? No, I
Not
would on
even
my
on
own demos, but that was just like I would from the demos, I would literally just like practice for like an hour or less and like, okay, good. I got my chops down enough to record a drum track.
right.
So it was a real treat to get to play with John and Rob and everybody and to play that show. It was a blast.
So you were living in LA then, where you still live, yeah?
Yeah, I moved to LA in 2000 and yeah, I'd flown up to Seattle for I think we were there for like a week or two and we just kind of hung out and rehearsed and played that show.
When did you move to LA?
I moved in October of 2000.
Oh, I feel like there was a moment when I considered moving to LA. There have been two different moments when I've considered moving to LA. And it must have been 2003 or 4 3 2003. maybe 2004, but probably three. And I feel like I talked to you about it, and I was just like, "What do I do? Do I do it?" I feel I feel like you were like, "Yeah, why not? It's really nice."
Yeah. I think something snapped in me, like, in, like, '99, and, like, I think in Seattle, the music scene was so electronic, like, and
Right.
there was, more of an electronic world, and, like, Moby and, like, Paul Oakenfold and, like, Tricky and stuff like that, like, all stuff that I really liked, but and I think, like, all my friends, like, my close friends didn't seem like they were doing much, and I think I got tired of the rain too, like, I was trying to get that I was gonna buy one of those serotonin lights,
Right.
you know, to, like, enhance your mood, you know? And I was like, "Nah, I think I'll just move to LA." You know? And it was kind of on a whim, like, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a band. I ended up hooking on with this band, a couple bands, and, but it's weird. I just gravitated towards Silver Lake in LA because and that's where I live now because it reminded me of Seattle. You know, it's like this sort
Right.
of like green, lush hillside neighborhood in the middle of a city. And
And
I
it's
was like,
walkable.
it's totally walkable and it's like it's chock full of musicians and artists and people in film. And I was just like, oh no, I can totally do this.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's been a pretty, you know, it's been kind of a love affair ever since. Like I love it there. I still love it.
It's funny, not the very first time I ever went to LA, because of course, the first time I went to LA, I went to Hollywood and went to the Sunset Strip and went to Melrose, and that was the idea that I had of LA, and that's what I wanted to see. But the second time I went there, I went and visited a friend of mine from high school, and stayed at a super killer house. Not like a great bit, but in Silver Lake, up on a hill with a great view. Not a big house, but that was all of a sudden opened up this door of thought about what LA is. It's like, oh, there's, you know, there's a lot of killer houses and a lot of really cool neighborhoods. Um,
Yeah, it's funny. There's a movie. It's called L.A. Plays Itself, and it's this really long documentary about how film and how Hollywood have kind of imprinted into people's minds what it is, you know. And there's so many different layers of sort of stereotype, and uh, you know, even when I travel to San Diego, because my girlfriend lives in San Diego, it's like there's this sort of brushback of like, oh, you're from LA, and like, oh, you must be totally superficial, and like all of that. But it's like LA is so there's so many layers to it, and just like the I think the energy and the hustle is like it just feels good, and like you're just drowned in sunshine all the time. It's just like there's always kind of like this energy that I'm really that's what I love about it. And all these sort of you know, you could go like I go snowboarding and then you can go right to the beach in the
right.
same day.
You snowboard at Big Bear?
I go to Mountain High a lot, which is like about 80 or 90 minutes from my house, and
Mm,
I can kind of cut out like on a Tuesday morning and like I'll just go for like half day or something like that, and then like get back and like work in the afternoon. So it's pretty
that's not
choice
so
right now.
bad.
Yeah, it's really great.
Uh, so when you got to LA, you'd been there on tour and probably you'd visited some.
Yeah.
You had no idea what was going to happen.
No, it was totally a whim. You know, I just kind of decided it, and I had gone down and looked for apartments, and I couldn't find an apartment until right before I had to get back on the plane to come to Seattle, and it was an apartment on Rampart. Which, if you know much about LA, Rampart at that time, there was a lot of police corruption and crime and gang activity on that street. But I didn't know it. I didn't know what Rampart was. So I was like, oh, I got the apartment. That's fantastic. But I ended up driving down a month later with just like my drum set, a sleeping bag, and my little color TV. And yeah, I was kind of winging it. You know, I didn't really have a job. Um, it was just kind of one of those wild card moments, you know, you have where you're just like, I'm just going to go do this thing. And um, just kind of live by the hair of my chinny chin chin. But it was great. It was a good decision.
And you didn't you didn't actively try to get drum gigs when you got to town?
I did. I was like, I had this kind of like notion that I was going to be sort of like the hired gun guy, like, and I'd work with this guy Dan Field who represented like Josh Freeze and those kind of guys. But I ended up just kind of like getting into a couple bands. I joined this band with this guy Ben Shirazi and uh, and Paul Demore, he was originally the bass player in Tool.
Yeah.
So and I'd known Ben. I met Ben in Vancouver because he had recorded his record with Dave Ogilvy, who did the Lucky Me record. So I had met Ben in Vancouver, and we had kind of become friends. And so when I moved to LA, I was like, "Hey, we should jam," So we ended up having a thing that we did for a couple years, and we were kind of a trio for the first year with Paul, and it was great because those guys were great songwriters, and their collaborations were really cool. But then Paul ended up wanting to kind of do his own thing, which was Lusk, which is a really cool band that he had, and he wanted to put all his interest in that. So I ended up playing with Ben for a couple of years, and I had another band I was in that was kind of a band just to kind of stay active and to stay drumming. It was more kind of heavy and more bluesy, but I could kind of keep that heavy aspect of my playing, greased up and still
Yeah.
in action. Um, so yeah, I was in some bands, but it was a different experience than when I was in Seattle. It's like when I was in Seattle and I went to LA, I'd be playing like the great clubs, and then I was in LA and I was sort of like playing like the Coconut Teaser and stuff like that. I was just like, I think this is the time to kind of take a time out from music, and you do that sort of reflection and kind of like work on all the other things that have been neglected, like personal relationships and finance and all that kind of thing. Um,
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that musicians aren't fucking economists?
yeah, shocking, shocking news. I know. Um, yeah. So the LA thing, yeah, the LA was kind of as much a sort of a turning point transition in my life as it turned into that more than a place to kind of continue my my musical path as a drummer. I think I just kind of like had my first band I was 16, and I really was not in a band from age 16 until I was about 30 or 31. So I kind of just needed that sort of pause.
Right. Yeah, I've done it a couple times. I mean, I'm kind of doing it now, but not really. I mean,
Yeah, but you're doing a lot of stuff with the Couchers, right? Like whenever there's like you
yeah,
need a bass
sure.
player, a guitar player, you're on there. And what are
Well,
you
not
doing
every
musically?
episode, yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
making a solo record, but it's I'll tell you about it off camera.
Okay.
Um, I really should be done with it by now. My goal was to have it to press by January 1 of this year, but that didn't happen.
COVID.
Well, COVID should have enabled me, should have empowered me and enabled me, but it didn't. I'm a bit spread thin. But I made a record a few years ago with Deja. You remember Deja from Seattle?
Oh, DJ's amazing. She's
Yeah,
got an
she's great.
amazing voice.
We made we have a song called Lucky Me.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Um and yeah, so we made a record under the name The Union Gospel.
The Union Gospel. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've seen some of your stuff. It's super cool. Will
Uh
you do that stuff live when you can do it again?
oh, I don't know. I mean it's kind of morphed in, I live 3 hours out of the city now, and
Oh, right.
we probably are going to do a little bit of recording, you know, like finish some songs that we started, but with no real sense of urgency. So she actually
Yeah.
just sent me a demo to work on.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. She's a great singer. But I mean, I guess sometimes I think like what would have to what would the opportunity have to be for me to drop everything and climb into a van or get on a bus.
I've
And
thought of that a lot. Yeah.
and the thing is that opportunity is probably not going to come.
Yeah, it
When I
might
ask
not never
myself,
come.
like what opportunity, like the opportunity that will never come. That's the one that, that's the one that'll get me out there. But I have some other stupid ideas. I'm ridiculous in my ambition. I'll tell you about that. Maybe perhaps there'll be some opportunity for us to do some more stuff. Because you played
Yeah,
drums
that'd
on
be
it. We're not
awesome.
going to talk about the details, but you played drums on a Couchers video, and you fucking
Yeah, that was great.
you crushed it.
Thanks, brother. Well, the crazy thing about that is like it actually kicked me into a whole like drum thing. Like I've been playing drums like almost every day when I'm at home, and like to kind of follow up on that question, like what would it take for you to get into a van? I sometimes think about that. Like, what if somebody wanted to hire me to be the drummer or something? And I'm like, I don't know if I would do it, unless it was just bonkers, But the thing that I always come back to with the drums is like the people, the only people I want to play with are people I've already played with, So like with Greg and Engine Kid, we had a band 2017 to 2019 called This White Light with Jen Wood, who's a great singer from Seattle.
Yeah.
And then I'm redoing. We're gonna. I've had a band that I was in the Tri-Cities when I was like 20 called Schedule. And we're gonna in a month we're gonna go like write a bunch of new songs. So it's like that Couchrish thing got me all like fired up on drums. So like now I'm like doing a bunch of drum stuff and
Amazing.
jamming with Greg on this other project right now. We jammed I think last week. Um, he's got all sorts of projects going on and collaborations. So we've stayed connected from our Engine Kid days.
What is
And
his does he have is that label his?
yeah, Southern Lord is his label, and it's great. I mean, I'm so blown away by like what he does. To have this boutique label, and it's just like it's so successful, and it's so
Oh, great shit.
uh, he's got great integrity with the way he runs the label, and he's got all this great roster of heavy bands like Sleep and Sun, which is his band. So it's great. He's reissuing all the Engine Kid stuff as a box set that's coming out. I think
So
in
killer.
April. He's gonna do. We're gonna do 500 for Record Store Day, which I think
Yeah.
have already been bought or allocated. But that's really exciting for us to kind of come together, and we've kind of been doing a lot of work to kind of do the liner notes and kind of put all the photos together, and all the music was remastered, and the vinyl cuts sound amazing. So that's been a real kind of kick to sort of revisit all that and to kind of celebrate it.
Oh, that's killer. Uh, during that time when you were like, I'm not going to play the drums, the coconut teaser kind of hurt my feelings. You know what I mean? You're like, what am I doing here? Um,
Yeah,
right. That's kind of the feeling. And I've had that feeling a number of times because
yeah.
it's almost a seasick feeling where you're like, there are certain things in life I need to be tending to and paying attention to. But I, I'm driven and, you know, I run on music. That's what gives me energy. And so it's a, that's a tough balance to strike. Uh, what did you do, man? What did you do during that period? Like
Yeah, I
you
mean,
had to get a job, right? You
I
probably had some shitty jobs for a while.
well, no, I focused. I have a painting business. I'm a real estate agent, but at that time, I had a painting business that I still have that I was just trying to get going. So I kind of put all my energy into that. I didn't from the time I moved to LA, which is 2000, until my painting business was sort of full bore in like 2004. I was just catering jobs, working on movie sets, um,
That's the gig that
picking up
everyone
like
gets in
labor
LA to get
gigs
a
and
PA
stuff. And it
gig,
was just
right?
yeah, couple PA gigs, and I was just like, this is not for me. I'm more entrepreneurial, and like I don't know if I can. I'm unemployable. I'm like self-employed, so I kind of put all my energy into my painting business and my relationship at that time. I still was kind of still dipping my foot in the idea of being a drummer. Like I auditioned for like Melissa Oftemauer from Hole's band, and I went on tour with some other friends for a week because their drummer's like back was out. So I still was kind of like connected and like still playing drums, but my focus was kind of on these other things. And then I came back to music, you know, as more from a guitar songwriting perspective,
Right.
which was really refreshing because I think I'd gotten tired of that dynamic of being the drummer and sort of being in the backseat as a songwriter per se. Like I was kind of like I love being a drummer and like it's kind of like really what I am as a drummer, but I needed to have a different angle to the music. Otherwise, I was just not going to want to make it, you know? So coming at it as a songwriter and kind of working on songs like that kind of, it just, it opens yourself up and you start to listen to all your favorite songs, like from the guitar point of view or from the songwriter point of view or from the singer's point of view. And it's just like, you hear everything all brand new again. So that was like a really a kind of an epiphany and like a good reset for music for me.
I don't want to forget because there are like fucking 5 questions in what you just said that I want to ask. Don't forget. Don't let me forget. Remind me to ask you
Mhm.
about starting a business outside of music. I want to talk about work as a real estate agent
Yeah.
and also at being self-employed, like do you specialize in, like, is that something that you, I guess there are a lot of people who are self-employed or that are independent contractors that are buying houses in LA, or they're tech, right? Is there tech money there? Are there tech people in LA?
Yeah, there's tech people, there's some tech people, but for the most part it's like, it's based around the film industry.
Right.
Most of my clients for my painting business are in the film or an offshoot of that for the most part.
Did you do any
Um,
contract work for films, like painting sets or anything like that? Because that seems like,
No, I thought I was going to be a scenic for a hot minute, where you're kind of a set painter, but I've just never been into like the 16-hour day or like,
yeah, no,
working
that's
for
tough.
like six. I've always been kind of a more like a day guy and like I love my free time. So basically how my life works now is I'm a real estate agent, a painting contractor, and those are kind of like not necessarily 50-50 because the painting business I've got it so dialed that and like the guys that are on my crew are so well paid and they're so good at what they do that it kind of runs itself. And I have it's a very boutique kind of high end clientele, so I can spend more hours on real estate. So my week usually looks like 60% real estate, maybe 30%, 20% painting, and then like a whole other chunk just to like dedicated to like playing music and going downtown to my rehearsal space and working on songs and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I've
Not bad.
structured my life.
Not
Yeah.
bad. That's
Yeah.
uh
I like being my own boss. Like I like hustle and I like consequence, like that I've always my dad is like that, my brother's like that. Like we're kind of just hustlers and like I don't think we're like I've been told when I was younger that I have a problem with authority, but like I don't think I do. I don't think I do now. I definitely did then. Like I couldn't like don't tell me what to do. And I think that is why my whole life had been kind of entrepreneurial. It's just like um I definitely, work with people better than I did when I was younger in that regard. But um yeah,
that
it feels good
segues
to kind of
me
just
perfectly,
what's
and
that?
that segues perfectly into the other question that I intended to ask. And that
Which
is,
is
well, do you think that taking the different angle on music and songwriting, going from drums, it is largely perceived as being like a back seat, and is like a support instrument, right? To
Hmm.
taking the like the front seat, the driver's seat. Um, do you think that that was motivated and sort of like? Do you think that starting your own business sort of empowered you to say like, well, I could do that also, even though you'd done some before, and moreover, how are you on drummers? Because there's always that. Did you was it did you have an issue like when when you were working out songs, if someone would say like, hey man, you're rat-a-tat-tatting on the snare too much?
No, not at all. I mean, with Gale Forces, which is my project in band where I sing and play guitar, like I've just been incredibly great, like blessed to be able to have the drummers that I played with are all from the Tri-Cities, which is
Right.
kind of funny. Eric Ockery played on some stuff, or I've played on most of the stuff because I can play drums, so I'll just do it. But there's also a guy named Chris Dodd who is in this band called Lady Bird Unition, and um, he's from the Tri Cities. So whenever I go up there, he'll play drums. And then Isaac Carpenter, who we both know and love,
Pretty good
these
drummer.
guys are so good that it's just like it's amazing because I can just be like, oh, I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing, playing
Right.
guitar and singing, and whatever they do is going to be perfect for the song and have electricity and have energy and action and dynamics. And it's like, and we're all from the Tri Cities, so we're all kind of cut from the same cloth anyway. So it's almost like me on steroids back there, like, or
So you're
whatever.
telling me
So
that you give them the recordings that you've made, and then you never are like, hey man, that you keep playing. You're easy breezy about
no,
it. You're not a tyrant.
yeah, well, the stuff I no, not at all. I mean, the stuff I do with Eric Ockery, like, I mean, he's kind of my drumming idol. Like, I grew up
Yeah.
emulating him, so it's like when he does stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, more of that. Like that's cool. And then I think maybe there was one song that he came and recorded a couple of years ago where I had a couple little backwards little fills that were kind of part of the rhythmic hook that I was constructing, that I was like, hey, this kind of fits together like that. So kind of, reverse those two things that you're doing to kind of make this rhythmic thing make sense with the vocal.
Right.
But it's not really, it was more of a rhythmic structure than like an actual drum part or something like that. And with Isaac Carpenter, it's like he's so next level. Like his dynamics and musicianship and his feel like do so much to a song that like I really don't say anything. Like anywhere he puts a fill is like it's intentional for like it, to me he's like a songwriting drummer. Like he's writing
Oh yeah.
songs on the drums because of his feel and the dynamics and the way he adds and augments a pattern to create energy or to create suspense or to create like a anticipation.
He's a
Like he's
composer.
doing all of that. He's a composer and he's a songwriter and a music producer and a mixer, so he's thinking about music like I'm thinking about music, like from a holistic point of view. And then the bass player in Gale Forces, Gabe Van Benschoten, he has a studio, him, he did the Akira audio.
Gabe
So
is the
he's
biggest
also a
mystery, man.
songwriter.
I want to ask you some questions about Gabe afterwards. Don't let me forget.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's just a joy to kind of play with people that like are kind of songwriters in their own right. So it's like there's so much unspoken things that are happening where we don't have to say it because we all already understand it. And it's kind of different, I think, in the bands that I grew up with, where you're in a band and everybody's trying to kind of poke in their thing so that they're heard and their identity is on tape or whatever. But with Isaac, and Eric Ockery and the guys I play with, it's like we're all sort of like we're all just on the same page so much that it kind of just works itself out. And and there's like deep musical respect. So it's just, I've been lucky to play with. I have to play with a good drummer, right? Like
Right.
you wouldn't be able to have another guitar player that sucked or whatever. Like they have
Oh,
to be like at
you
least as
can't
good as you,
you
because
can't play with a
that's just the
shitty drummer.
bar that's getting.
If your
What?
drummer sucks, your band sucks.
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out there. Say again.
If your drummer sucks, your band sucks. Bottom
The
line.
band sucks. Yeah. No,
That's
I
it's
was
just
having this
that simple.
conversation with Gabe. It's like, and he's been kind of going through these deep cycles of like drum tuning and mic placement, and he's so obsessed with drums, and he's a bass player and a guitar player and a singer. He's not a drummer, and he's
Uh-oh, you froze up, buddy. You moved your computer and you froze. Oh, there you are.
hey bud, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. You froze up there for a second.
Anyway, I was just kind of commenting on like it's just a lot of times it's all about the drum sound in rock.
Right.
Like that's kind of the whole sound of the mix. So I don't know, as a drummer it's fun to play with guys that that's their outlook, right? you know
I think that drummers make the best producers. That's what I think. Um, I think the drums are a intricate. They're just like a intricate instrument. Uh-oh, did you freeze again? Here we go.
Hey, I keep losing you. Sorry about that.
I think that drummers make the best producers and engineers, especially engineers, because drums have
Yeah,
to sound good, And
I
I don't know
agree.
I don't know how to make that shit sound good.
I think I have this thing for like baseball. I'm totally into baseball, and like the best managers in baseball are catchers because they
Right.
know exactly when to take the pitcher out. I think drummers, they understand the structure of a song.
A catcher also views the field in a different way than anyone else.
Yeah, they've got like a panoramic view of everything that's going on,
They see
and kind of
they're
an oversight. That
the one person that sees everything.
totally. Yeah, I
That's
love
the
like
umpire.
I was playing adult league baseball. I play adult league baseball and have for like 15 years, and the catcher for our team for years. He's a drummer. This guy Phil Levitt. He's one of my best friends. He's in this really cool band called Seven Horse. But I used to play center field, and he would have this array of signs where he would kind of touch his knee or touch his chest protector or his catcher's helmet, um, because we were trying to decode the signals, so the other team couldn't, because there's a lot of sign stealing and there's a whole
Right.
strategy. And there's been times where I'd be in center field and I know what the knee means and what the hat means, and like, and when I'm like, there's been games where I'm with him in the pitcher and I know what he's going to call next. And I know that they're coming up and in and they're going to go out and away with an off speed, and like, okay, this guy can't hit the changeup, because he's way out in front, and like there's something musical about that, and there's kind of like this rhythm that goes on. Um,
It's like
yeah,
spy work.
I don't know where I got on that, but
It's
it's
like it's
it's
like spy
musical.
business.
It's like a dance, it's there's pace and there's restraint and there's a dynamic to it. It's kind of cool.
How have you enjoyed doing the real estate thing?
Do I enjoy it?
How have you enjoyed it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like my painting business. It's a little bit more sophisticated and complex. It's like you're guiding somebody through an emotional experience, that's like the biggest purchase. For some people it's the biggest purchase in their lives, and it's their biggest
Most
and
people,
most.
yeah, unless they own a fucking massive yacht.
Totally. So it's really rewarding. It's a lot of work, and like some clients, it takes, I just closed on a deal, and like the clients, I showed them houses for 14 months. So you
Right.
spend a lot of time with these people, and like, you get to hear their voice when they got the house, when they beat out the other offers, or like, the day you drop off the keys. It's it's really satisfying in that regard, you know. It's such a long process.
Uh, Back in 2000 or whatever, 2000, is that when you got to LA?
Yep.
A person, an average probably person could probably well, maybe not that then. Maybe if I made the money then that I make now, the same wage, I could have afforded to purchase a house in Silver Lake then, but things have changed a lot.
Yeah. It's pretty bonkers right now. Yeah, it's I don't know how long it can continue. I think Silver Lake has always been kind of a bubble. You know, it's like
Right.
even when the recession was going on, like everything else was underwater around it, but Silver Lake was still ticking up. I think, you know, not to get all fucking real estatey and like talk about numbers and shit, but
I'm asking.
like
Yeah.
in 2019, like Silver Lake appreciated at on average at 17%. You know, so if you bought a house for $1 million, you made 170 grand in 1 year just on appreciation. So it's kind of this weird time, and it's like it is tough. It's tough for people that are like first time buyers or people that have like, you know, kind of pieced out on the whole home buying American dream. It's kind of, you know, you see a lot of people exiting to like Texas or Tennessee for all these tax benefits. Like,
Right.
you know, St. Louis, you can still buy a pretty killer house for like 250, but LA is just kind of manic. And I just think there's just so much money in Los Angeles. You know, there's such a convergence of wealth, um,
This
that
is
kind of
something
make
I
the
think about a
market kind
lot
of crazy.
because we got our house and it's appreciated. I mean, if you pay attention to things that aren't real, um, by I think nearly 25% because of our proximity to the city. We're 2.5 hours away from New
Are you
York.
in Hudson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a hot spot. That's a big time hot spot.
And but I keep telling myself like, well, it's only worth that much if we sell it. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
you know, it's only because we have the discussion all the time, you know, like a fucking goat farm when in across the road. And you know, we're just kind of like, man, are we going to regret this? You know,
yeah,
that wasn't there when we moved in. Are we going to regret it? And we're like, well, I mean, we could sell it and make money and throw it on another house, but
where are you gonna go?
that's right, man. Where are
Yeah,
you going to go? Because there aren't houses. There's a finite number of houses, and
yeah,
all of the houses have gone up in value. So
yeah.
we wouldn't really
It,
be ahead.
yeah, no, that's crazy. I was just having that conversation last week with my client. Like, he's like, I know this is the best time to sell, but it's like, where do we go? Like everywhere we want to go is kind of more expensive than we want to spend, and um, so yeah, it's kind of crazy to have like these houses that are worth so much. I have a client who bought their house for $39,000 like in the 70s, you know, and their house is worth like $2 million. So, you know, it's
That's
great if you want to refinance or anything like that. But yeah, it's just a crazy market. There's just no inventory. The rates are low and will stay low because of COVID. So it's just kind of a frenzy. Um, but it's been good. It's been a good business for me. I'm really it's really I'm always kind of looking for something new to do too. So it's like it's been a good challenge, and it kind of pairs with my painting business too.
How did you get into it? Was that something you were always interested in doing, or was there?
Just it kind of was like I had a crazy job with my painting business where I got really screwed royally. I got kind of hammered by this general contractor who, after the fact, I learned was kind of like that was his sort of modus operandi, was sort of preying on subcontractors, and I've taken inventory of the things I did, but it kind of just made me like it just made me shift because with my painting business I had a dozen guys for a long time, and it was very intense to run that kind of crew. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I kind of just transitioned to real estate. I ended up mentoring with somebody who was a painting client of mine, who was a friend. And, I was like, let me just do two businesses at once and kind of like put that together. So it was kind of on a whim.
Is that
And just,
crazy to manage that time and energy to be able to focus, or are you able to multitask
it,
or compartmentalize easily?
yeah, no, I'm still trying to work that out, because like I used to be a big time planner and like writing lists and all that stuff, and I've kind of gotten away from that. But um, every day is kind of like triage. It's like you're kind of like, what is the most important thing,
Right.
and kind of focus on that. Whether it's like, oh, today I need to prospect real estate clients, or I need to do home showings, or I need to really babysit this client of in my painting job because today they're feeling a little neglected. I need to go spend some time and work on colors, or you know make myself known. But it's kind of a delicate act of like not spreading myself thin, but just kind of putting the right amount in every little box each day, and
Right.
kind of putting it all together while still kind of carving out time to like write songs and play drums and be creative, and stay connected to the music world, which is kind of where my heart song is. Like that's where I would really prefer to be all the time.
Sure.
But then that space kind of gives you, a vantage point and a way to reflect, and it makes it more valuable. So for me, it's like it's this whole Libra balance that I'm doing.
Where do you wh- where do you do your recording?
I do I do all my recording right now at Gabe's studio,
Oh
like
yeah.
like Gale Forces and songs. I've got like a small recording thing I do at the rehearsal space, like to work out ideas and
Mhm.
like work on vocals if I'm working on a song, or work out harmonies. But when we track, we just go to Gabe's because it's just kind of the de facto place. He's got a great studio in Woodland Hills, and um, we're all used to it.
You know, it's funny that the the week after we did our thing, or maybe you came the week at like back to back weeks, two different drummers for Couchras videos recorded with him.
Yeah, well,
Just
didn't Frankie from Guns N' Roses did something or
yeah,
something like
just
that?
totally coincidentally.
Wow.
And like he knows him too. And we've
Yeah.
had some friendly text exchanges, and he I was telling him what a hard time I had learning this fretless bass part for um this other
What
song.
song?
Well, we're not going to talk about it. I'll
Oh,
tell
we're not talking. Don't talk
we
about
don't
it.
talk
Don't
about the
talk about
songs. They're a surprise.
it.
But it
Right,
was,
right.
I mean, I converted a bass to fretless. Just, I mean, anyone listening knows if they have followed along to my social media closely, because I was obsessed with this song and I just talked about it nonstop because it just had me all messed up. It had me all,
You're not going to tell me the name of the song, are you?
I'll tell you and then I'll cut it out. It's Every Time You Go Away by Paul Young. The
Oh,
Paul,
you were talking about
Paul
this. You were
Young
talking about
version.
this on another couch riffs, I think.
Well, like I converted this bass to fretless and then I learned the Pino Palladino bass part. And I was talking to him. I was like, I never played fretless. It's so hard. And he said, oh, yeah, man, my dad used to play fretless guitar. Is his dad some kind of heavy jazzer?
Oh, you're talking about Gabe? Yeah,
Hmm.
his dad was Matthew, and he was a very heavy cat and like jazz bass player, and knew a lot of Jaco Pastorius things, and really into like prog rock and jazz, and just a really heavy elevated guy. And also he was a natural healer, like a naturopath, like Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
and kind of the guru in Woodland Hills of like acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So I always say, because Gabe is like 30 years old, but it's like he's kind of like us, because he's like his dad kind of imprinted all of this knowledge on him. So um, yeah, Gabe and his dad are, you know, both
Yeah.
heavy vibes there.
I didn't want to like pry into them because there are a lot of people who grew up in LA who have like celebrity parents or whatever. And I didn't want to be like, yo, tell me about your dad, man. I want to know about your pops, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause I didn't want to be I didn't want to be that guy. But I'll fucking pry you about it if he
yeah, yeah.
listens.
No, I
If he
mean,
listens,
Matthew,
he'll laugh about it.
his dad passed away, which is, you know, sad because he and Gabe were really close, you know. But and I never met his dad, but I know of his dad because through Gabe, you know, and like there's all these people that I know that like knew him, and so we kind of talk about him a lot. So he's kind of like a little bit of a legend, you know, of what he did in his life and
Right.
in multiple facets.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about, you know what? We're, how are you on time?
Yeah, whatever you want. You if you want to rap or you want to keep talking, either one.
Well, let's wrap up the episode and then, and then
Wrap it
talk,
up.
like, talk about some shit off clock. What do you call that? Let's clock out.
We're gonna clock out. Yeah,
We're gonna
chink chink.
clock out.
It's like Miller time. Yeah.
Do you do you have Gale Forces stuff that you've been working on that's coming this year?
Yeah, we've been recording kind of like one song at a time, and kind
Yeah.
of the idea is to like make enough songs for an album and then put out an album. But we just released a single called Fly Agaric and the video for the song called Patroller, and then we've got another song called Barbarossa that's going to come out. So we're kind of just like recording them as we write them, and then we'll probably just kind of release it as an album. But I've been doing a video for every song. So every song that we're doing, there's a video, um, you know, that we put on the YouTube or the Instagram channel. So
Like
you
a
can check it
performance
out, you know,
video or a dramatic video or
kind of a dramatic video. I've hooked up with this sort of this creator in Barcelona, and he's done like a couple of these like kind of psychedelic videos that kind of really go with the subject matter of the song. We've also done a couple live in the studios at Akira Audio at Gabe's place,
I've
like
seen
for a
them.
couple songs where we almost kind of couch riff style, you know, where there's a shot of each guy and we're just kind of playing the song live. But we're playing it all together at once. So that was kind of like our sort of like COVID alternate. Like we really want to play live, but we can't. So let's do a couple songs in the studio. So we've been pretty active this year, as much as time allows. Everybody's got other projects. You know, Isaac's in AWOL Nation, and the guitar player has a whole other project called House of Worship, and then Gabe has a studio, so he's constantly producing and has a placement music co-writer that they have a deal with. So we're all kind of busy doing our own thing, but then we kind of get together and do Gale Forces, and we're kind of doing a song at a time, which has
Good to be
been super
busy.
fun.
It's good to be busy, especially this year, man.
Yeah, it's golden.
All right. I'm gonna plug the recordings, the singles, and the record and the Engine Kid stuff at the top. Do you have any promo
Sweet.
shots from uh let's just say goodbye, but I'm not really gonna say goodbye.
All right. You want me to call you?
Oh yeah, why
What do
don't
we do?
why don't you call me?
All right, I'll call
Or
you.
we can just do
All right,
this.
I'm gonna.
No, we'll just do I
What are we
just
gonna do?
kill the I'm because I'm recording audio. Boom. I'll just kill the audio and stop the video recording.